Welcome to Things Wealthy People Do Differently Behind Closed Doors. By Audiobooks for Us. Let's begin. Chapter 1, Wealth Isn't an Accident. Let's be clear about one thing from the start: wealth, real wealth, the kind that lasts, the kind that brings peace, the kind that builds legacy, is never an accident. Wealthy couples don't just get lucky. They build it. Quietly. Intentionally. When no one is watching. Behind closed doors, they're having the conversations most couples avoid. They're aligning on vision. Making hard decisions, not later, but now. They don't just fall in love. They fall into agreement. While the world is chasing clout, they're chasing clarity. While others are reacting, they're preparing. And while some are surviving paycheck to paycheck, they're laying bricks for the future. Not with noise, but with strategy. They talk about money, not just when something breaks, but regularly. They set goals together, not just personal dreams, but shared ones. They say no. No to distractions. No to unnecessary spending. No to anything that doesn't fit the vision. Because they have one. That's the real flex. Not the car. Not the house. Not the vacation photos. It's the alignment. The rhythm. The trust. The peace in their home. If you've ever looked at a couple and thought, how do they make it look so effortless? Here's the truth: it's not effortless. It's intentional. You don't need to be rich to start acting like the wealthy. You just need to start thinking like them. Living like them. One habit at a time. And your first step. You just took it, by pressing play. Chapter 2, They talk about money, often. Let's be honest. For most couples, money is the conversation they save for when something breaks. When the account balance is too low. When the card gets declined. When the bills feel heavier than the income. But for wealthy couples, talking about money isn't a crisis conversation. It's a normal one. A regular one. A rhythm. They don't wait for tension to talk. They check in before things get tight. Not because they're obsessed. But because they're aligned. They treat money like what it truly is, a tool. And like any tool, it only works well when both people know how to use it. So they ask, how are we doing this month? What's the goal for the next quarter? Are we still on track for that investment? Do we need to adjust? No shame. No panic. Just clarity. They've learned that silence around money leads to secrets. And secrets around money, they grow into resentment. So they keep it in the light. Even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable. Because here's the truth most people avoid: avoiding the conversation doesn't protect your peace, it delays your progress. Wealthy couples don't wait for explosions. They listen for the early warning signs. They make space for dialogue before it turns into damage. And that builds trust. It builds transparency. It builds the kind of partnership where both people feel safe, even when the numbers aren't perfect. Because it's not about having all the answers. It's about staying in agreement, even when the math is messy. So ask yourself. When was the last time you talked about money, without fear? When did you last check in, just to stay connected? Start there. Not with judgment. But with curiosity. Because every time you talk about money, you're choosing unity. And unity? That's where wealth begins. Chapter 3, They set shared goals, not just personal ones. In the beginning, it's easy to dream individually. You think about your goals, your vision, your desires. But when two people come together to build a life, that life has to be co-written. Wealthy couples understand something many miss: a future you didn't build together can quietly become a future you resent. That's why they don't just talk about mine and yours. They build a we. They sit down and ask, what do we want our life to look like? What do we want our legacy to be? What are we working toward, together? Not just, I want to pay off my loans. Or, you want to buy that car. But we want to be debt-free by 40. We want to take that anniversary trip in 2 years. We want to own income property before our kids hit high school. These aren't just dreams, they're blueprints. And here's the thing, they don't wait until they feel ready to make those goals. They make the goal first. Then they build the habits, plans, and lifestyle to meet it. That's what unity looks like. Not just being in love, but being in step. And when life gets hard, because it always does, those shared goals become the glue. They remind each other, we're not fighting each other. We're fighting for the life we agreed to build. So many couples drift simply because they never defined a direction. But wealthy couples, they design it. Because drifting is expensive. But unity compounds. So maybe today is the day you stop just thinking in twos, and start dreaming as one. Grab a notebook. Sit down with your partner. Ask the big questions. Make the long-term plans. Even if they shift, and they will, the point isn't perfection. It's partnership. Because the strongest couples don't just share a bed. They share a vision.
Chapter 4. They live below their means. Quietly. Let's talk about peace. Not the peace that comes from a vacation or a temporary high, but the kind that whispers at night, we're okay, we're covered, we're not chasing, we're choosing. Wealthy couples don't live for appearances. They live for alignment. They drive what makes sense. They wear what lasts. They spend with intention, not for applause. Because behind every expensive-looking life is either wealth or worry. And they choose wealth. Quiet wealth. Unapologetic discipline. Here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. Some people look rich because they spend like it. Others stay wealthy because they don't. Wealthy couples protect their peace by building margin. They don't max out their lifestyle when income increases. They upgrade slowly. They choose deliberately. They know that just because you can doesn't mean you should. They delay upgrades. They wait for the right time. They budget, even when it's not trendy. Why? Because they've seen the other side. They know what it's like to be chained to a car payment that steals your sleep, to live in a house that owns you, to dress in brands that mask the burnout. So now, they live below their means and above their stress. They don't broadcast it. They don't owe anyone an explanation. They just protect their peace like it's priceless. Because it is. Living below your means isn't about restriction. It's about reclaiming control. It's about giving your future a chance, instead of giving your ego the spotlight. So if you're watching others level up and wondering if you're behind, remember, quiet wealth moves differently. It doesn't compete, it builds, and what it builds is lasting. So take a breath, choose your peace, and remember, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. The people who matter will understand. The future you're building will thank you.
Chapter 5. They invest in skills, assets and businesses, together. Some couples talk about vacations. Others talk about designer shoes, kitchen renovations, or the next social media trend. Wealthy couples, they talk about growth. Quietly. Consistently. Strategically. They aren't just dreaming about the next raise. They're asking, what can we build that no one can take from us? What can we learn that multiplies? What can we own that keeps working, even when we're sleeping? They don't spend all their time reacting to bills. They use their energy to build pillars, of income, of knowledge, of freedom. One partner might take a course in digital marketing. The other might learn about real estate or stocks. Together, they might start a business, buy an asset, or launch a product. And guess what? It doesn't always go perfectly. Sometimes they fail. Sometimes they lose money. Sometimes they pivot. But they try. They learn. They adjust. And they never stop investing. Because they know this truth, everything you buy loses value. Everything you build compounds it. Wealthy couples don't wait for a boss or a system to elevate them. They study. They strategize. They sow, and it's not just about business. They invest in skills that make the home stronger: emotional intelligence, communication, leadership, boundaries. They don't just want to win in their bank account. They want to win in their relationship. That's why they learn together. That's why they grow together. That's why they invest, not just in things, but in themselves. So maybe you start with a book. Maybe you sign up for that class. Maybe you finally say, let's do this together. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to begin. Because every wealthy couple was once a learning couple. Every powerful partnership was once a bold decision. And today, that could be you.
Chapter 6. They support each other's careers without competition. There's a silent trap that ruins more potential than failure ever could. It's called comparison. And for couples, it's deadly. Wealthy couples know this. The moment you start competing with each other, you stop building together. That's why they do something different. They support each other's careers, not despite their own dreams, but alongside them. If one partner is climbing a corporate ladder, the other isn't secretly resenting the time or praise they're getting. They're asking, how can I support you this season? If one partner is building a business from scratch, the other isn't keeping score. They're cheering from the side, with sleeves rolled up, ready to help when needed. It's not always easy. Sometimes it feels uneven. Sometimes it looks like one person is shining more than the other. But wealthy couples understand this. You don't need to dim your light for someone else to shine. You just need to build in the same direction. So they communicate. They celebrate each other's wins, no matter how small. They make room for ambition. They hold space for growth. They don't say, what about me? They say, I see you, I'm proud of you, and I'm with you. Because here's what they've learned. When one of you rises, the whole house gets lifted. That kind of support, it's more powerful than any promotion. It builds loyalty. It builds belief. It builds legacy. So if you feel like you and your partner are on different paths right now, ask this. Are we still walking toward the same vision? Are we still showing up with grace? Are we still willing to take turns being the strong one? Because sometimes support looks like words, and other times, it looks like stepping back so the other can run. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. And in the long run, that's wealth. Chapter 7. They say no to lifestyle creep, even when they can't afford it. There's a moment no one warns you about. When you finally start earning more, when the numbers in your account begin to feel a little lighter, a little freer, and something inside says, you've earned it. Go ahead, get the upgrade. Say yes to everything now. That voice, that's lifestyle creep. And wealthy couples have learned to quiet it. Because here's what they know. Just because your income rises doesn't mean your spending should follow. They don't inflate their lives just because they can. They stay grounded in the habits that built their wealth in the first place. Yes, they celebrate. Yes, they enjoy the fruit of their work. But they never let celebration turn into sabotage. They ask, is this aligned with our vision? Does this serve us long term? Are we doing this to build or to impress? Wealthy couples resist the urge to always level up their lifestyle. Instead, they level up their investments, their savings, their security, while others are chasing the next car, next phone, next trip. They're chasing margin, options, peace. And you know what? It's not always fun in the moment. It can feel like you're behind, like you're the only ones not indulging in more. But here's the truth they live by. Long-term peace is always worth more than short-term applause. Because applause fades, but freedom stays. So they keep their lives a little lighter, their budget a little tighter, their future a little brighter, not because they have to, but because they choose to. They don't fear missing out. They fear drifting away from their purpose. And that mindset, it keeps their lives from becoming bloated with distractions and focused on what actually matters. So the next time more money hits the account and temptation whispers in your ear, pause, breathe, remember your blueprint. Because true wealth isn't just about having more, it's about needing less.
Chapter 8, They plan for worst-case scenarios, before they happen. Let's talk about the conversation most people avoid. The one that makes you squirm. The one that feels too serious or too negative. What if something goes wrong? What if one of us gets sick, loses a job, faces the unthinkable? Wealthy couples don't avoid those questions. They lean into them. Not because they're pessimistic, but because they're prepared. They understand this simple truth: you don't rise to the level of your hopes, you fall to the level of your systems. So they put things in place before the storm. They have insurance, not just the legal minimum, but the kind that protects the life they've built. They write wills, create living trusts, assign power of attorney, not because they expect the worst, but because they respect the future. They set up emergency funds. They know exactly how many months they could survive if everything paused tomorrow. And they talk through what-ifs, calmly, clearly, together. It's not romantic. It's not exciting. But it's deeply loving. Because when you plan for the storm, you don't panic when the clouds come. Wealthy couples don't let fear make the decisions. They use wisdom. They understand that real security doesn't come from ignoring hard things. It comes from being ready for them. They protect each other through strategy, not just affection. Because love without a plan is just a feeling. But love with a plan, that's a fortress. So if you've been putting off those conversations, if you've avoided the hard topics because they feel uncomfortable, ask yourself, isn't the discomfort now better than the chaos later? Because peace is not the absence of problems. Peace is the presence of preparation. And wealthy couples, they choose peace. Over and over again. Chapter 9, They keep separate entertainment money, and no one has to ask permission to breathe. Here's something wealthy couples don't always talk about publicly. But behind closed doors, it matters more than people realize. They each have a little money, that's just theirs. Not because they're hiding. Not because they're selfish. But because they respect each other's autonomy. It's not about control. It's about freedom. They understand that no matter how close two people are, each partner still needs room to be themselves. So they build it in. A monthly personal allowance, entertainment money, mad money, whatever you call it. It's a small slice of the budget with no judgment attached. She might use it for candles and coffee dates. He might use it for games, gadgets, or sneakers. And no one has to ask permission. No one has to justify or explain. It's personal. It's light. And it keeps financial conversations from feeling like a battlefield. Because when everything is shared but nothing feels like yours, resentment starts to grow in the shadows. Wealthy couples guard against that. They don't wait until they're frustrated to say, I just want a little space. They bake it in from the beginning. This kind of freedom, it's not a threat to unity. It protects it. It says, I trust you. I see your individuality. You're not a child who needs permission, you're a partner I believe in. And this isn't just about money. It's about mental margin. It's knowing you can have a little joy without guilt. A little autonomy without conflict. A little breathing room in a life you've built together. Wealthy couples don't cling tight out of fear. They hold loosely, with love, and with trust. And in doing so, they create space not just for partnership, but for peace. Chapter 10, they choose long-term peace over short-term applause. There's a kind of pressure that creeps in when no one's watching. But everyone online is posting. The big house. The extravagant vacation. The birthday surprise that looks like a music video. It's easy to feel behind. To feel invisible. To want just one moment where you get the spotlight. But wealthy couples think differently. They don't build their life for applause. They build it for peace. They've learned that what impresses strangers for 5 seconds often costs peace for 5 years. So while others chase image, they chase impact. While others rack up debt for the gram, they quietly build wealth in silence. You won't always see their success, because it's not loud. It's quiet. Intentional. Grounded. They say no to things that look shiny but feel heavy. They turn down invitations that don't align with their values. They choose simple when simple feels safe. They pick the car they need, not the one that proves a point. Not because they're boring. Because they're free. They don't need to be seen to feel secure. They don't need a stage to feel significant. They don't need public validation to know they're doing well. They look at each other and say, "We're good." And that's enough. Because at the end of the day, the likes fade. The comments stop. The crowd moves on. But peace. Peace stays. Peace tucks you in at night. Peace shows up in your decisions, your sleep, your softness. And when you choose peace often enough, it grows into something even greater, legacy. So if you've been tempted to perform, to overspend, overshare, overcompensate, just to feel seen, pause. Ask yourself, is this for me, or for them? Is this building our life, or broadcasting it? Wealthy couples choose their life over their image. Every time. Because peace is the real luxury. And it never goes out of style.
Chapter 11. They align on a vision before they chase the dream. Wealthy couples don't just dream big, they dream together. Before they start building, they make sure they're building the same thing. Because what's the point of climbing a ladder if it's leaning against 2 different walls? They talk about it, often early, openly. Where do we want to live? What does freedom actually look like to us? What are we willing to sacrifice? And what's non-negotiable? They don't just assume their partner wants the same future. They ask, they listen, they adjust. It's not always easy. Sometimes the answers reveal tension. One wants peace, the other wants power. One wants early retirement, the other wants adventure. But wealthy couples don't run from those differences. They work through them. Because without shared vision, money becomes a tug of war. Every dollar becomes a debate. Every goal becomes a guessing game. So they slow down, they get clear, they paint the picture together. And once they align, really align, then they move with unity, with energy, with peace. Because now, it's not just your dream or my dream, it's ours. They make decisions with a North Star in mind, something bigger than the moment. And when life gets noisy, they don't panic. They just come back to that vision. Vision is what keeps you from chasing distractions. Vision is what reminds you why you started. Vision is what keeps couples building instead of breaking. So if you've been moving fast, but not always in sync, maybe it's time to pause, to sit together and say, what does success look like for us? What are we building and why? Because when 2 people agree on the destination, the journey becomes so much lighter. And wealthy couples, they don't chase wealth for the sake of it. They chase it with intention. Together. Chapter 12. They don't compare. They celebrate. Comparison is the silent thief. It creeps in quietly, in the scroll of a social feed, in the voice that says they're doing better, in the glance that turns admiration into inadequacy. But wealthy couples, they move differently. They don't measure their worth by someone else's wins. They measure by their own growth, their own peace, their own joy. Instead of competing with others, they celebrate them. They clap from the sidelines. They learn from the wins. They get inspired, not insecure. Why? Because they know someone else's success is not their failure. There's no scoreboard in partnership, no bonus points for being the better half, no medals for outperforming your spouse. In wealthy relationships, it's not a race. It's a relay. And both of you win when either of you advances. They encourage each other. They speak life over each other. They brag about each other in private and in public. She doesn't downplay her dream to protect his ego. He doesn't shrink from her shine to feel more needed. There's room for both to grow, room for both to rise. Because true wealth isn't just about money. It's about being seen and still supported. It's about winning and wanting your partner to win too. Wealthy couples know your partner's light doesn't dim yours. It helps you both see more clearly, so they don't compare. They celebrate. They build a culture of appreciation, of noticing effort, of naming progress, of saying, I see you and I'm proud. And in that space, competition dies, jealousy fades, and love grows. So if you've ever felt like you needed to outperform to matter, or felt small because your partner shined too brightly, take a breath. There's enough light for both of you. There's enough space for both of your stories. And wealth? Real wealth, emotional, relational, financial, lives in celebration, together. Chapter 13. They stay curious and keep learning. Here's a quiet truth wealthy couples live by. Comfort is not the goal. Growth is. Even when things are working, even when money is good, the house is peaceful, the goals are being met. They stay curious. They ask questions. They read. They unlearn. They relearn. They understand that wealth has never fully arrived. It's evolving. They attend workshops together, download new budgeting tools, talk to financial advisors, explore new ways to invest, not out of panic, but out of hunger. Hunger to get better, smarter, more prepared, more aligned, because the world is changing. And staying the same is a risk they're not willing to take. They don't wait until they're in crisis to educate themselves. They invest in wisdom ahead of the need. That might look like learning about estate planning when others their age are avoiding wills. Taking a business class together, even if only one of them is launching something. Sitting down with books and podcasts and talking about what they're discovering. They don't treat learning like a chore. They treat it like an asset. Because a curious mind is a wealthy mind. And when both people are growing, so is the relationship. Here's the thing. Stagnation feels safe, but it's a silent killer. Curiosity. It keeps love fresh. It keeps finances sharp. It keeps vision alive. Wealthy couples are not too proud to say, I didn't know that. They're not too busy to learn something new. They stay teachable because they know the moment you think you've arrived is the moment you stop moving forward. So if you've been coasting, if you've said, I'm not good with money one too many times, if you've let your partner handle it all while you zone out, it's okay. You can shift today. Pick one new thing to learn. Together. Let curiosity breathe life into your partnership and watch how wealth starts to follow. Chapter 14. They create systems, not just good habits. Habits are powerful, but habits rely on willpower, and willpower doesn't always show up. That's why wealthy couples take it a step further. They build systems because they know willpower is human. But systems don't forget. They don't burn out. They don't get distracted. They don't just decide to save more. They automate their savings. Money moves before they see it, so it's not up for debate. They don't just try to remember to talk about money. They have scheduled check-ins, weekly, monthly, quarterly. It's on the calendar. It's sacred. They don't wait until tax season to panic. They have folders, files, and professionals in place before the deadline looms. These couples make wealth building feel effortless. Not because it is, but because they've designed it to run without friction. Here's the difference. A habit is waking up early to talk about your budget. A system is setting a reminder, having a spreadsheet ready, and making it part of your routine. A habit is choosing not to overspend at dinner. A system is budgeting for eating out in advance so you never feel deprived or guilty. They delegate, they plan, they review, they remove emotion from repetition so it can stay consistent because motivation comes and goes. But a system keeps going. Wealthy couples don't hope for consistency. They design for it. They protect their bandwidth by removing decision fatigue. So energy goes where it matters most, not into remembering, but into creating. It's the small details that create long-term freedom. The Money Monday calendar invite. The app that rounds up spare change and invests it. The shared Google Drive for receipts and plans. The rule that no purchases over a certain amount happen without a 24-hour pause. Simple things, but powerful ones. So ask yourself, where are you relying too much on memory or mood? What could you automate, delegate, or template? What system would make your wealth journey lighter? You don't need to be perfect, just prepared. And that's what systems do. They prepare you to win, over and over again. Chapter 15. They choose the right partner. Intentionally. This might be the most powerful truth of all. Wealth doesn't begin in a bank account. It begins in who you build with. Wealthy couples didn't just get lucky. They didn't stumble into the right person and call it fate. They chose on purpose. They didn't just marry chemistry. They married character. They didn't just say, I love you. They said, I trust you with my future. I believe in what we can build together. Because here's the honest truth no one says enough. Your partner is either your biggest multiplier or your most expensive liability. Wealthy couples chose partners who align, not just emotionally, but financially, mentally, spiritually. They looked for shared values, not just shared interests. Vision, not just attraction. Discipline, not just ambition. They chose someone who wasn't afraid of the long game, who wouldn't flinch when things got tight, who wouldn't sabotage with secrecy, resentment, or ego. They chose someone who could say we more than me, because wealthy love requires teaming up, no silent scorekeeping, no resentment over who earns more, no shame over who's growing faster, just unity, just purpose, just partnership. And if you're already in a relationship, this still matters. Wealthy couples don't assume alignment. They create it. They revisit it. They invest in it. They have hard conversations, even when it's uncomfortable. They go to therapy, even when nothing's wrong. They keep choosing each other with eyes wide open, because wealth isn't just about what you make. It's about what you sustain. And you can't sustain anything long-term without a partner who's rowing in the same direction. So ask yourself, are we a team? Do we have the same end game? Are we both doing the inner work, not just chasing outer success? If not, it's okay. Every team needs a huddle. But if you're building wealth, make sure you're building it with someone who wants the same future you do. Because love without alignment will wear you out. But love with alignment, that's where legacy lives. Closing, your wealth blueprint begins now. So here you are. You've listened. You've felt the weight of truth. You've seen behind the curtain into the habits, mindsets, and quiet choices that separate wealthy couples from those just surviving. You've learned that wealth doesn't begin with luck. It begins with intention. It's not built in front of cameras. It's built in whispered conversations, in grocery lists and shared calendars, in bedtime talks about dreams and fears. It's built behind closed doors, with unity, with strategy, with love that's not just romantic, but resilient. You now know. Wealthy couples talk about money often, not just when there's a problem. They live below their means, not to appear broke, but to protect their peace. They invest together, in skills, in assets, in each other. They say no to lifestyle creep. They plan for worst-case scenarios before they arrive. They keep separate fund money, so freedom and structure can coexist. And most importantly, they build with the long term in mind, not the short-term applause. They aren't perfect, they're intentional. And that's what this book has been all about. Not perfection, but direction. So now the question isn't, can you do this? The question is, which habit are you ready to copy first? Because it only takes one shift to start a ripple. Maybe today, that shift is sitting down with your partner and setting a shared goal. Maybe it's opening a savings account for your business dream. Maybe it's saying, I want to get better, together. Whatever it is, let it be small. Let it be sustainable. Let it be yours. This isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of your blueprint. One choice at a time. One habit at a time. One honest conversation at a time. You are not behind. You are building. You are becoming. And that future you imagine, the peaceful, stable, abundant one, it's already calling your name. On behalf of Audiobooks for Us, thank you for taking this journey. Thank you for caring about your life, your money, your love, and your legacy. Now go build it, quietly, boldly, together.